You'll be amazed when you discover what Native Americans traditionally consumed. Here, I'll share 10 overlooked Native American foods that can sustain you in nature. Today's grocery stores have led us to believe that food originates on shelves, wrapped in plastic. We've lost sight of the fact that for millennia, people discovered everything necessary for survival right around them. The indigenous communities of North America possessed extensive knowledge of the botanical world, which served as both their dwelling and nourishment source. Music they perceived not merely woodland or grassland, but a genuine larder filled with nutritious roots, grains, and berries. This understanding enabled them to thrive in extreme conditions where contemporary humans would struggle to last even days. Much of this wisdom has disappeared or been overlooked in modern times. Music will trace the path of the hunters and foragers of the vast plains and eastern forests to uncover their dietary practices. This represents more than a catalog of plants. It's the foundation for grasping an entire approach to coexisting harmoniously with the natural world. Stay until the conclusion and you'll discover how a single wetland plant could substitute for an entire supermarket. I'll share the most protected survival secret in nature, hiding in obvious view. Cattail, the complete wilderness grocery store. Cattail, which numerous people regard as an ordinary weed, served as one of the most important and multi-purpose plants for Native Americans. It offered nourishment throughout all seasons, with nearly every section being consumable at specific growth phases. During springtime, young cattail sprouts were harvested at ground level. Their flavor and consistency were comparable to cucumbers or tender bamboo. They were consumed fresh, incorporated into salads, or prepared like asparagus. During summer months, the plant generated two varieties of flower structures. The male flowers positioned at the stem's apex contained abundant pollen. This was gathered by shaking into containers and subsequently utilized as flour, incorporated into baked items to provide golden coloring and nutritional content. The female flowers, which would become dark brown spikes, were also consumed when immature and green. They were boiled and enjoyed similar to corn. This was a limited-time treat available only briefly. Throughout autumn and winter, the primary treasure of cattail emerged, its rhizomes. These thick, starch-filled roots were extracted from the muddy lake bottom. Though labor-intensive, the payoff was substantial. Flour was obtained from the rhizomes. They were washed, dried, and subsequently ground into powder. This flour formed the foundation for flatbread, broths, and stews, providing sustenance during the leanest winter periods. The rhizome center could also be consumed boiled or roasted. Its flavor resembled potatoes. It offered a dependable carbohydrate source, accessible even beneath snow cover. The cattail stalks were also utilized. Near the base, they contain a soft white interior. This could be eaten fresh or prepared and was obtainable nearly year-round. Therefore, cattail represented a comprehensive food resource. It supplied vegetables during spring, flour and grain during summer, and potato-like sustenance during winter. Understanding this single plant could preserve the life of a stranded wanderer. Cattail exemplifies how much valuable material we've ceased recognizing in our surroundings. I'm genuinely curious about your perspective. What are your thoughts on how our understanding of wild plants has transformed? Share your views in the comments. Acorns, turning bitterness into bread. Are you prepared to discover the reality about the food that countless people walk over daily? For numerous tribes, particularly in eastern woodland areas, acorns represented as fundamental a food as wheat or rice does for us currently. They were exceptionally nutritious, abundant in fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. However, they concealed one challenge. Unprocessed acorns hold significant quantities of tannins, astringent compounds rendering them unpalatable. Consequently, the primary objective was processing them to eliminate the bitterness. This procedure demanded patience and wisdom transmitted through generations. Initially, the gathered acorns were dried. Subsequently, they were hulled and milled into flour. At this point, the most crucial step commenced: leaching. Multiple techniques existed for extracting tannins. Among the most prevalent was rinsing with cold water. The acorn meal was positioned in a permeable container and repeatedly flushed with cold water, which progressively eliminated the bitterness. An alternative approach involved burying intact acorns in boggy earth for extended periods. The mud and moisture naturally removed the tannins. Following this, the acorns were retrieved and were prepared for use. After leaching, the flour obtained a pleasant, slightly sweet flavor. It was employed to prepare porridge and broths resembling oatmeal in texture. This was substantial and comforting nourishment. Acorn flour was additionally used for baking bread. It was combined with water, shaped into flat discs, and baked on heated stones or within fire embers. This bread was dense and extremely nutritious. Certain tribes prepared thick broths or stews from processed acorns, incorporating berries and additional edible vegetation. This preparation could be preserved temporarily and constituted an essential dietary component. The acorn harvesting process was extended and demanding, yet it supplied the community with a stable food reserve throughout winter. Oak woodlands essentially functioned as vast orchards providing consistent yields. The capability to transform bitter acorns into nourishing bread represents the height of indigenous culinary innovation. Camas Bulbs, the sweet root with a deadly twin. But what if I revealed that the most prized root could conceal a lethal threat? In the following section, you'll discover a plant requiring not merely a digging tool for harvesting, but also profound expertise. A secret transmitted across generations, the capacity to differentiate edible plants from their hazardous lookalikes. Camas bulbs represented a genuine delicacy for tribes of the vast plains and western regions and a significant trade commodity. Areas blanketed with blue camas blossoms were deemed true treasures. These plant bulbs are abundant in inulin, a complex carbohydrate converting to sweet fructose during cooking. This rendered camas not only nourishing but also extremely flavorful. Its sweet profile was reminiscent of roasted pears or sweet potatoes. Collecting the bulbs constituted a group endeavor most frequently undertaken by women. Equipped with specialized digging implements, the women ventured to the meadows following the flowering period. After multiple weeks of intensive labor, they could accumulate sufficient supplies to endure the entire year. The most critical phase was preparation. Uncooked bulbs would prove excessively difficult to process. Therefore, they were prepared in earth ovens for extended periods. For this, they excavated a substantial pit and arranged the base with heated stones. They positioned a layer of moistened grass atop the stones. Then the camas bulbs, another grass layer, and sealed everything with soil. The bulbs gradually cooked in the steam environment for 1 to 3 days. Through this treatment, they became tender, darkened, and intensely sweet. They were consumed immediately as a ceremonial dish. This was a genuine celebration following prolonged effort. Portions of the prepared bulbs were sun-dried. When dehydrated, they could be preserved extensively. They were pulverized into flour or maintained whole for winter utilization. Dried camas was incorporated into broths and stews as a sweetening and thickening agent. The flour derived from it was utilized to create small flatbreads. It represented a precious energy source throughout the cold months. Nevertheless, camas possessed a dangerous twin, the so-called death camas. Its pale flowers and bulbs closely resembled the edible variety. Confusing one for the other could produce tragic outcomes. Therefore, knowledge distinguishing these plants was invaluable. The ability to correctly harvest and prepare camas constituted an essential skill. It demonstrates the depth of indigenous peoples' understanding of their environment. Their knowledge served as their principal safeguard and prosperity source. Wild rice, the sacred grain that isn't rice. What if everything you've learned about rice isn't accurate? Wild rice, or manumin, isn't truly rice. It's the seed of a tall aquatic grass thriving in shallow lake and river waters throughout the Great Lakes area and neighboring territories. For the Ojibwe, Menominee, and other regional peoples, this plant represented a sacred blessing and the cornerstone of their culture and livelihood. Their complete lifestyle was intimately connected to the yearly cycle of wild rice cultivation and collection. The harvesting procedure was a genuine ceremony. The rice was typically gathered in pairs, gradually navigating through the dense vegetation in a canoe. One individual guided the vessel, while the other employed 2 implements, called knockers, to carefully bend the stalks across the side and tap the mature grains into the canoe with gentle strikes. This technique permitted only the ripest seeds to be collected. Some grains dropped into the water, guaranteeing a harvest for the subsequent year. This exemplified sustainable and thoughtful utilization of natural resources. Following harvesting, the processing commenced, which also demanded considerable effort. Initially, the rice was sun-dried or dried over gentle heat. Drying not only preserved the grain but also imparted a distinctive smoky character. Subsequently, the rice required thrashing, that is, the hull needed separation from the kernels. For this, a small depression was dug, lined with hide, and the dried grains were poured within. A person wearing specialized footwear carefully danced on the rice, removing the husks. Afterward, the rice was winnowed in the breeze. It was tossed on a large flat surface or bark piece. The wind transported the light husks away, while the heavy clean grains descended back. The finished wild rice was prepared as porridge, incorporated into broths, or accompanied other preparations. It possessed a rich nutty character and was considerably more nutritious than its Asian equivalent. It's abundant in protein, fiber, and vitamins. Wild rice reserves enabled tribes to comfortably endure extended and severe winters. It represented not merely sustenance, but a symbol of abundance and the foundation of existence. Authority over rice lakes was essential. Currently, wild rice is regarded as a specialty item. However, for indigenous peoples, it was and continues as their staple food. Jerusalem artichoke, the root Europeans misunderstood. In the following section, you'll discover a root that Europeans confused with an entirely different vegetable. Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke or earth apple, is a close relative of the sunflower. It's a tall plant bearing bright yellow blossoms, but its primary worth lies beneath ground. Native Americans have been cultivating and harvesting its edible tubers for ages. Jerusalem artichoke tubers appear similar to ginger root or small potatoes. They are extremely resilient and can readily endure winter freezes while remaining underground. This rendered them a trustworthy food source obtainable in late autumn and early spring. Unlike potatoes, Jerusalem artichokes lack starch. Rather, the tubers store inulin, which provides them a sweet flavor. This sweetness becomes even more noticeable after the initial frost. Native Americans utilized Jerusalem artichokes in numerous ways. They consumed them fresh, sliced thinly. When uncooked, they're crispy and moist with a nutty character reminiscent of water chestnuts. Most frequently, the tubers were prepared. They were boiled, roasted in fire embers, or cooked on heated stones. When prepared, Jerusalem artichokes became tender and resembled baked potatoes in consistency. Jerusalem artichokes were also employed for making broths and stews. They were paired with other vegetables, grains, and meat. The sweet flavor of the tubers enhanced the taste of any preparation. This plant was so widespread and appreciated that it was grown throughout eastern North America. Tribes established entire plots of Jerusalem artichokes. It constituted a significant component of their farming. European settlers quickly recognized this plant's advantages. They embraced the cultivation culture and usage from the Indians. This is how Jerusalem artichoke reached Europe, where it received the name topinamber. Its cultivation ease and high productivity made Jerusalem artichoke very appealing. It required minimal maintenance and could flourish in virtually any earth. It represented a genuine discovery for food stability. Currently, Jerusalem artichoke is regaining popularity due to its beneficial characteristics. However, it's essential to acknowledge that we're indebted to the indigenous people's knowledge and work for this plant. They were the original ones to recognize the treasure hidden in the earth apple's roots. Prairie turnip, the plains nomad's bread. I uncovered this accidentally while researching nomadic tribe lifestyles and was astounded. For the Lakota, Cheyenne, and other peoples of the vast plains, prairie turnip, or timpsula, constituted one of the most critical foods. This modest root concealed underground was their bread equivalent. Prairie turnip isn't genuinely a turnip. It's a starchy, spindle-shaped root of a legume family plant. Only individuals with trained vision could locate it in the endless prairie, guided by its subtle leaves and flowers. Harvesting turnips represented a significant summer endeavor. Women employed sharpened implements to extract the roots from the hard, parched ground. This was meticulous work beneath the intense sun, yet it guaranteed the tribe's survival. Fresh turnips could be boiled or roasted in coals. The flavor fell somewhere between a potato and a turnip. It was a substantial and nutritious accompaniment. However, the principal benefit of prairie turnips was their capacity for extended storage. Most of the yield was preserved for later use. For this, the roots were peeled and sliced thinly. Then these slices were threaded on cords and sun-dried. When dehydrated, the turnip became hard as stone and could be maintained for years without compromising its nutritional characteristics. This was a strategic stockpile for hungry winters or unsuccessful hunts. Dried turnips were employed to produce flour. They were ground into powder and utilized as a thickening agent for broths and stews. This flour made preparations more filling and imparted a pleasant flavor. The Great Plains nomads consistently carried supplies of dried turnips with them. It was lightweight, compact, and extremely nutritious, the perfect food for extended travels. It could simply be chewed while moving to sustain strength. Prairie turnips represented more than sustenance. They were integral to the culture and economy of plains tribes. Locations abundant in this plant were highly esteemed. This modest root was a genuine lifeline in the demanding prairie conditions where alternative plant food sources were scarce. Maple sugar, nature's sweetener before sugar cane. Now let's transition from nutritious roots to something sweet. In the upcoming section, you'll discover how Native Americans obtained sugar long before sugar cane's introduction. Long before cane sugar reached North America, the indigenous peoples of the eastern woodlands already possessed their own natural sweetener. They were the original discoverers of the sugar maple's remarkable property, its sweet sap. Maple sugar manufacturing was a significant seasonal enterprise. The process initiated in early spring when daytime temperatures warmed while nights remained cold. This temperature variation caused the sap to flow actively through the tree trunk. The Indians designated this period the sugar moon. Using an axe or blade, a V-shaped incision was created in the maple tree trunk. A wooden channel or bark piece was positioned in the lower section of the cut. The sap flowed down this channel into a receptacle typically fashioned from birch bark. The collected maple sap wasn't particularly sweet and resembled water in consistency. To convert it into sugar, excess moisture required evaporation. This process demanded substantial firewood and patience. The Indians evaporated the sap in clay or wooden vessels. Since such containers couldn't be positioned directly on flames, they employed the heated stone technique. Stones warmed in fire were lowered into the vessel with the sap, causing it to boil. As water evaporated, the juice transformed into thick syrup. If the process continued, the syrup crystallized. The outcome was solid maple sugar. It was poured into specialized molds where it hardened into cones or blocks. In this solid state, the sugar could be maintained indefinitely. It was a precious product for personal use and commerce. Maple sugar was utilized everywhere. It was incorporated into porridge and beverages, employed to preserve berries and to season meat preparations. It was the sole sweetener available. It represented not only a delicacy, but also a vital energy source. Hunters and warriors carried pieces of maple sugar on extended expeditions. It enabled them to quickly restore their energy. Maple sugar manufacturing was a family or communal activity. People established temporary settlements directly in the maple groves. It was a period of intensive labor, but also a time of festivity and gathering. Sumac, the native lemonade plant. On a warm summer day, nothing surpasses a refreshing beverage with a touch of tartness. Native Americans knew where to locate a natural source of this tartness, sumac, a shrub bearing bright, fuzzy, ruby-colored fruit clusters. Sumac berries, which appear like small velvety cones, are blanketed with tiny hairs. These hairs contain malic acid, providing them their characteristic tart, sour flavor. These berries formed the foundation of the traditional beverage. They were collected at summer's conclusion when they achieved maximum ripeness and vibrancy. It was crucial to do this before substantial rainfall. Rain could rinse away the valuable sour coating from the fruit. The beverage preparation was remarkably simple. The harvested fruit clusters were positioned in a container with cold water. Hot water wasn't employed as it could extract bitter tannins from the plant. The fruit was gently pressed by hand directly in the water to facilitate acid dissolution. After some time, the water adopted a pinkish tint and a pleasant sour taste. This process resembled brewing cold tea. The beverage was then filtered through cloth or a grass bundle. This was essential to separate the liquid from the small hairs that could irritate. The result was a refreshing beverage similar to lemonade or fruit juice. It was consumed to satisfy thirst in warm weather. It was not only delicious but also beneficial. Sumac is abundant in vitamin C, which made the beverage an excellent method to maintain wellness. Occasionally, maple sugar was incorporated into Indian lemonade. This balanced the acidity and made the flavor more enjoyable. The outcome was a genuine summer refreshment. Beyond the beverage, dried and ground sumac berries were employed as a seasoning. This sour powder was incorporated into broths and meat preparations. It fulfilled the same function as lemon juice or vinegar in contemporary cooking. Sumac is another illustration of how indigenous peoples skillfully employed the gifts of the surrounding nature. They discovered flavor and benefit even in plants that many currently consider simply environmental features. Burdock root, the plant that inspired Velcro. Burdock or burdock root is recognized today
With the
primarily for
narrower and
its
smoother
clinging
leaves of
flower
this one.
structures, which
This difference
inspired
helps us
Velcro fastener
identify their
creation.
medicinal properties.
Nevertheless, for Native Americans and subsequently for European colonists, this plant was fundamentally a valuable food source. Its long, fleshy root was consumed. The roots of the first-year plant are regarded as the most flavorful and tender. In the second year, the root becomes tough and woody as all energy directs toward flowering. Therefore, it was crucial to know which plant to extract. Harvesting burdock roots is challenging. Its taproot can extend as deep as a meter underground. It required both strength and expertise to remove it intact without damage. Before preparation, the root was thoroughly cleaned of soil and dark outer layer. Beneath was white or cream-colored flesh. The cleaned root rapidly darkens when exposed to air, so it was immediately submerged in water. The flavor and consistency of burdock root are distinctive. It's mildly sweet with an earthy character vaguely reminiscent of artichoke. It was prepared similarly to other root vegetables. Most frequently, burdock root was boiled. It was sectioned and boiled in salted water until tender. The boiled root could be consumed as an independent dish or incorporated into stews. It could also be roasted or fried. When fried in fat, burdock root acquired a pleasant, crispy exterior. It was substantial and nutritious food, abundant in carbohydrates. Young burdock leaves and stems are also consumable in spring. They had to be gathered before becoming tough and bitter. The stems were peeled and prepared like asparagus. Burdock was not only sustenance, but also a significant medicinal plant. Preparations from its root were employed to address various conditions. It was a multi-purpose plant, beneficial throughout. Although burdock is seldom present on dinner tables currently, in some global cuisines, such as Japanese, it remains a favored vegetable. This validates that Native Americans' understanding of this plant was entirely accurate. Amaranth, the ancient superfood grain. Amaranth, or pigweed, with its bright flower clusters, is frequently perceived as an aggressive weed. Nevertheless, for many indigenous peoples throughout America, it was among the principal grain crops. It was grown and valued equally with corn. The primary worth of amaranth resides in its tiny seeds. A single plant can generate tens of thousands of seeds, making it remarkably productive. These seeds are a genuine nutrient repository. Amaranth seeds are abundant in high-quality protein containing all essential amino acids. This made it especially significant in areas where alternative protein sources were restricted. In nutritional worth, it exceeds many contemporary grains. Harvesting the seeds required particular skill. The flower structures were cut when seeds began maturing and arranged to dry. Then the dry flower structures were threshed to separate the small grains. Following that, the seeds required sifting to clean them of debris. This was painstaking work due to the exceptionally small seed size. The clean grains were prepared for consumption. Small flat cakes were baked from amaranth flour. The seeds were also boiled to create porridge similar in consistency to couscous. This porridge was filling and easily processed. Among the most intriguing preparation methods was creating puffed amaranth. The seeds were tossed onto a heated surface, such as a hot flat stone. The heat caused them to burst and expand, transforming them into something like miniature popcorn. This airy amaranth was consumed alone or combined with maple syrup or honey. This mixture was employed to make nutritious bars. It was simultaneously a treat and a high-energy food for extended journeys. Young amaranth leaves are also consumable. They were gathered in spring and prepared like spinach. They are abundant in vitamins and minerals. Although amaranth was unjustly overlooked and substituted by other crops with Europeans' arrival, currently it's experiencing a revival. Contemporary science has validated its exceptional nutritional worth. This ancient plant is again prepared to nourish people just as it did millennia ago. We've explored only a fraction of the extensive knowledge heritage of North America's indigenous peoples. Every plant in their environment held its function, its narrative, and its role in sustaining existence. For them, the forests and prairies weren't wilderness, but a dwelling filled with allies and providers. These overlooked foods aren't merely exotic treats or survival recipes. They're a reminder that nature can provide everything we require if we approach it with respect and comprehension. It's a lesson in balance that's more crucial currently than ever previously. By examining these ancient customs, we can not only diversify our nutrition, but also learn to perceive the world differently. Perhaps next time you traverse through a park or forest, you'll observe familiar plants with entirely different perspective. What are your thoughts on these overlooked foods? Which would you sample first? Recommend topics for future videos in the comments.